I work at a bakery in Berlin near Alexanderplatz. A woman from Texas came in during morning rush. She stood at the counter smiling, waiting. I had 6 people behind her. I asked what she wanted. She kept smiling. Just smiling. I asked again. She said, "I'm waiting for you to greet me properly." I told her I just did. She said in America, service workers say good morning and ask how you are. I explained this was Germany and we had a line. She said that was exactly the problem with Europe. No customer service, no warmth. I track these cross-cultural clashes full-time, so you don't have to. Most channels react to moments like this. I decode what they reveal about behavior. If that kind of clarity matters to you, subscribe before the next breakdown drops. She wanted to speak to my manager about our greeting policy. I was the manager. She said that explained everything. She asked if I'd ever been trained in hospitality. I've worked here 11 years. She stood there explaining how Starbucks greets customers. The line behind her grew to 15 people. A regular customer finally said, "Either order bread or leave." She gasped and said Europeans were so rude. She ordered nothing and posted a 1-star Google review about our hostile environment. We have 4.8 stars from 4,000 reviews. Last month, an American couple sat at a cafe table in Copenhagen for 3 hours. They ordered 2 coffees total. When I brought the bill, they asked why I was rushing them. I explained we needed the table. They said in America, "You can sit as long as you want." I told them they were in Denmark. They left a passive-aggressive note about Nordic coldness. Yesterday, a man from California loudly FaceTimed in a quiet train car in Switzerland. When passengers stared, he got defensive and announced Americans value freedom of speech. The conductor explained it wasn't about speech. It was about noise. He said he was being discriminated against. Most people scroll past this kind of story and never notice the deeper pattern. But if you're the kind who wants to understand cultures, not just laugh at them, you'll want to stay inside this channel. Hit subscribe and join the small minority who actually get it. And that was just this week. I'm a hotel receptionist in Amsterdam near Central Station. An American guest from Michigan came down at breakfast. She returned 5 minutes later, upset. She said the breakfast staff were incredibly rude. I asked what happened. She said nobody smiled at her. Nobody asked how she slept. They just pointed at the buffet. I explained that was normal. She insisted it was unprofessional. In America, she said, hospitality means warm greetings and friendly conversation. I told her Dutch culture values efficiency and privacy. She said that sounded like an excuse for bad service. She showed me a TripAdvisor article about European service standards. It was written by an American blogger. She demanded we implement smile training for staff. I explained our staff weren't being rude. They were being Dutch. She said she'd paid good money for this hotel and expected American-level service. I reminded her she was in the Netherlands. She asked if there was a complaint form. I gave her one. She wrote 3 pages about cultural hostility and rigid staff. Our breakfast team has worked here for years. They're efficient, competent, and professional. They just don't perform happiness. I drive a taxi in Prague. Picked up an American couple from the airport. They got in and immediately started chatting. Where was I from? Did I have kids? What did I think about Prague tourism? I gave short answers. I was driving. They kept talking. After 10 minutes of one-word responses, the wife leaned forward and asked if I spoke English. I said yes. She asked why I wasn't being friendly. I explained I was concentrating on traffic. She said taxi drivers in America are chatty and fun. I told her I wasn't American. She said I was being defensive. Her husband said maybe European drivers don't like Americans. I told them I simply don't make small talk with every passenger. She said that was the difference between good service and bad service. When we arrived, they tipped nothing and said it was because of my attitude. The fare was correct. The drive was smooth. I just didn't perform friendliness for strangers. I work at a pharmacy in Oslo. An American man came in needing allergy medicine. I asked what symptoms he had. He started telling me about his day, his hotel, his travel plans. his daughter's wedding. I interrupted and asked again about his symptoms. He stopped and said, "Wow, okay," rushing me. I explained I had other customers. He said in America, pharmacists take time to listen. I told him I was listening to relevant information. He said I had a terrible bedside manner. I'm not a doctor. I'm a pharmacist. He asked if Norwegian pharmacies had customer satisfaction surveys. I said no. He said that explained a lot about European healthcare. I gave him cetirizine. He asked if I could recommend it warmly instead of just handing it over. I stared at him. He said, "Never mind. Americans understand personal touch. Europeans don't." He paid and left. My job is to give correct medicine, not to perform emotional labor for tourists. I teach English in Barcelona, near Plaça de Catalunya. An American student from Florida joined my conversation class. First day, she hugged everyone. Full hugs, long hugs. The Spanish students looked uncomfortable but were polite. Second day, she did it again. One student stepped back. She asked why Europeans were so cold. I explained personal space norms were different here. She said hugging was friendly and Europeans needed to learn warmth. I told her it made students uncomfortable. She said that was their problem, not hers. She insisted Americans were just more open and loving. Third day, a student directly told her no hugging. She looked hurt and said she was trying to break down barriers. The student said the barrier was intentional. She asked if this was discrimination against American culture. I explained it wasn't discrimination. It was respect for personal boundaries. She said she wouldn't change who she was just because Europeans were standoffish. She left the class after 2 weeks, posted online that European education was unfriendly and cliquish. I'm a museum guide in Vienna, leading a tour of the Kunsthistorisches Museum. An American woman from Georgia kept interrupting with personal stories. I was explaining Baroque art. She interrupted to say her grandmother collected plates. I continued. She interrupted again to ask if I'd been to America. Another tourist shushed her. She turned and said, "Excuse me, I'm engaging with the guide." The tourist said she paid for the tour too. The American woman said Europeans had no sense of community. In America, she said, people share and connect. I explained this was a structured tour. She said I was stifling participation. I wasn't. I was trying to finish sentences. She kept interrupting for the entire hour. At the end, she left a review saying I was unwelcoming to interactive learners. The tour was designed for 40 people to hear information, not for one person to narrate her life story. I work at a grocery store in Stockholm near Södermalm. An American man came through my checkout line. He started chatting, asked my name, how long I'd worked there, if I liked my job. I scanned his items and gave short responses. He asked if I was okay. I said yes. He said I seemed unfriendly. I explained I was working efficiently. He said in American grocery stores, cashiers are personable and warm. I told him this was Sweden. He said that wasn't an excuse for coldness. He asked if Swedish culture taught people to be robots. I told him we value privacy and don't force strangers into personal conversations. He said that sounded lonely. I gave him his receipt. He said he felt sorry for me. I didn't ask for his pity. I asked if he needed a bag. He said no, but also that I should consider smiling more. I told him my face was fine as it was. He left muttering about Scandinavian depression rates. I work border control at Helsinki-Vantaa Airport. An American family came through from New York. Parents and 2 teenagers. The father handed me all 4 passports and started chatting. Told me about their Finland trip, their Airbnb, their excitement about saunas. I checked the passport silently. He asked if I was having a good day. I stamped the first passport. He said, "Hello? I asked you a question." I looked up and said yes. He said I could be friendlier. I told him I was processing his entry, not making friends. He said that attitude was why Americans think Europeans are rude. I explained I had 200 passengers to process. He said in America, border agents are professional and friendly. I told him American border agents are famous for being harsh and intimidating. He said that was different because it's about security. I asked what he thought I was doing. He said I was just stamping passports. I told him that was literally border security. His wife jumped in and said I was being defensive. I wasn't. I was explaining my job. The father said this was typical European arrogance. I asked if they had anything to declare. He said just their disappointment in Finnish hospitality. I stamped the remaining passports and waved them through. The teenage daughter whispered, "Sorry," as they left. The father loudly said to his family, "See? No warmth, no customer service mentality. This is why America is #1. I've worked here 8 years. I'm polite, efficient, and professional. I'm just not performing joy for strangers who think border control should feel like a Disneyland greeting." The truth is, Americans often confuse professional distance with rudeness. If this kind of analysis gives you a sharper lens on human behavior, imagine having it on tap every week. I'll keep unpacking what most people only feel but can't explain, and subscribers never miss it. You know where the smart ones click. We're not being cold, we're being appropriate for the context. And somewhere right now, an American in Munich is loudly asking a bus driver why nobody's smiling, completely unaware that the bus driver is just trying to drive the bus.